The sea is endless. Its voice rises and falls like breath. Close your eyes and you can hear it, a rhythm older than time itself. Tonight, we follow that rhythm into myth, into the story of Poseidon, Lord of the Sea. He is not only a god, he is a symbol of the vast unknown, a presence both feared and loved. His power is not in conquest. It is in the shifting balance of waves. Storms rage when his heart is restless. Calm returns when his spirit softens. At the center of it all is his throne, not carved from stone or iron, but formed by currents and living coral. It is alive, moving with the tides, a seat of power, yet also of burden. For to rule the sea is to carry its weight, every ripple, every tide, every life. The Waterborne Throne is more than a symbol. It is a bond between gods, mortals, and ocean. And so our story begins, carried by the waves, a journey into the heart of the deep, where myth and water flow as one. In the beginning, the sea waited. It stretched wide, silent, and endless. The waves rose and fell, but no master watched. The oceans held secrets, but no voice to speak them. Then came the children of Cronus, born of fate. Zeus claimed the sky, Hades the underworld, and Poseidon, with his restless spirit, took the sea. It was not given lightly. The sea is no easy realm to rule. It shifts, it changes, it resists control. But Poseidon's heart was drawn to it. He felt the rhythm of tides in his blood. He felt storms whisper behind his eyes. And so the throne of water was his destiny. Not a throne of gold, but of currents. Not a crown of jewels, but of foam. The sea wrapped around him like a cloak. Its strength flowed into his veins. Its silence echoed in his thoughts. Poseidon was not only a ruler, he was a keeper of balance. For every wave that rose, one must fall. For every storm that broke, calm must follow. He carried this truth as a burden, and the burden was heavy, yet sacred. The mortals feared his power. They feared the deep that swallowed ships. They feared storms that split the night sky. But they also prayed to him. They prayed for safe journeys. They prayed for fish to fill their nets. They prayed for calm seas at dawn. Their voices reached him like whispers in the wind. And Poseidon listened. He did not always grant what they asked, but he understood their smallness before the sea. For he too felt small before its endless depths. The throne he sat upon was not fixed. It moved with the currents, drifting, alive. It was built of coral and shell, of pearl that gleamed like moonlight, and of darkness that stretched like the abyss. No mortal hand could shape it. No god could take it away. It belonged to the ocean, and through it, to him. The throne was not comfort. It was responsibility. It was a reminder that the sea is eternal, and that he was only its keeper. Poseidon often looked into the distance. The horizon was a line that never ended. It reminded him of freedom. It reminded him of loneliness. For though he was a god, he was also apart. The sea set him apart from Olympus. While the others ruled above or below, he ruled between land and sky, between gods and men. That space was both gift and exile. But Poseidon accepted it. He accepted the mystery of the sea. He accepted its fury and its peace. And with each passing tide, his throne grew stronger. Not in stone, but in story. Not in gold, but in faith. The faith of mortals who looked out to sea. The faith of sailors who braved its vastness. The faith of dreamers who heard the ocean sing. Thus, the birth of the sea's keeper was complete. Poseidon was no longer just a name. He was the water's voice, its storm, its calm. The throne of the sea was alive, and it carried his soul forever. The sea had claimed Poseidon, but his hand was still empty. A throne alone could not mark his rule. He needed a symbol, a voice sharper than words. The gods called upon the Cyclopes, masters of craft. They were the forgers of thunder, makers of wonder. From the heart of fire they shaped a gift. It was no sword, no shield, but a trident. 3 prongs that gleamed with power of the deep. Each edge held the echo of the ocean's roar. Each spark carried the promise of storms. The Cyclopes hammered in silence and flame. They poured into the weapon the soul of water. When it was done, the sea itself seemed to stir. Poseidon took the trident in his grasp. It was light as air, yet heavy with destiny. He raised it, and the waters rose in answer. He lowered it, and the sea grew calm. The trident was not only a weapon, it was a key to balance, order, and change. With it, Poseidon commanded waves and currents. With it, he spoke to creatures unseen. The dolphins leapt in joy at its presence. The whales sang deep hymns beneath the surface. Even the smallest fish felt its call. It was a bond between Poseidon and the sea. Mortals heard of the gift and trembled. They saw storms born from a single gesture. They saw rivers shift with a touch of his hand. And they began to honor him with awe. Yet the trident was more than fear. It was also a promise of guidance, a promise that no sailor was truly alone. For when prayers rose, Poseidon listened. Sometimes the sea answered with calm winds, sometimes with trials to test their spirit. The trident reflected both mercy and might. Poseidon learned quickly the burden of its use. To raise storms without cause was folly. To bring calm without reason weakened the balance. So he ruled with care, though his temper was vast. He knew the trident was alive in its way. It pulsed with the tide, breathed with the waves. In quiet moments, it whispered to him. It reminded him of duty, not glory, of service, not conquest. And Poseidon listened. The trident became his companion, his truth. It was said to pierce the ground and call springs. It was said to split mountains and open rivers. But those were not its true gifts. Its true gift was connection. A bridge between God and sea, between sea and mortal. It carried voices, carried dreams, carried hope. Poseidon often sat upon his throne with it near. He would press its prongs into the sand and listen to the murmur of distant waters. The ocean's pulse ran through it, endless. And he felt himself part of something greater. Something older than gods, older than men. The trident was not the source of his power. It was the vessel of his bond with the sea. It was the sign that he did not rule alone. The sea ruled with him, around him, through him. And so Poseidon's reign deepened with each tide. Not in conquest, not in force, but in harmony. The forging of the trident marked his true beginning. From that day, the sea had its voice, and the voice was Poseidon's. Strong, shifting, eternal. Beneath the waves, Poseidon sought a home, a place not of Olympus, but of water and light. He dreamed of a throne that belonged to the sea, not fixed on land, not forged of stone, but alive, shifting, breathing with the ocean itself. The sea heard his desire and answered. Currents gathered, weaving coral into pillars. Shells drifted from the deep, glowing with color. Pearls rose like stars scattered across the floor. Even the sand shimmered as if touched by moonlight. The palace of Poseidon began to form. It was no ordinary dwelling. Its walls moved like waves, bending with the tide. Its arches were alive, grown from coral's patience. Its floor sang with the hum of whales below. Every chamber held the scent of salt and eternity. Creatures of the sea came to witness the wonder. Dolphins swam through the halls in joy. Sea turtles drifted as silent guardians. Schools of fish turned corridors into rivers of silver, and at the heart stood the Waterborne Throne. It was not carved by hand, but shaped by the sea. Coral rose and twisted into a seat, its arms stretched like branches of living stone. Gems shimmered from its surface, lit by passing light. The throne pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. It did not rest still. It moved with the tide, drifting gently. Sometimes it rose higher with the moon. Sometimes it sank lower with the pull of the deep. It was not fixed, for the sea is never fixed. Poseidon sat upon it for the first time. The weight of water pressed around him. The silence was vast, yet full of voices. Whales sang, dolphins chattered, currents whispered. He listened, and the throne listened too. It carried the breath of the ocean into him. He felt tides rushing in his chest. He felt calm flowing through his hands. The throne made him more than a ruler. It made him a vessel of the sea's will. Mortals could not see it, yet they sensed it. They felt its power in the rise of waves. They felt its grace in calm mornings. Legends began to grow of a throne beneath the sea, a throne that moved, unseen, but always present. Sailors spoke of glimpses in the depths, a shimmer of coral, a flicker of pearl. They said it was alive, breathing with the tide. And those who respected the sea felt blessed. The throne was not just Poseidon's seat. It was the heart of his realm, a reminder that no power is still, that true rule flows like water, that leadership is not control, but harmony. Poseidon knew this truth deeply. His throne was both anchor and freedom. It bound him to duty, but it also set him adrift with the sea. He accepted both with calm resolve, and so the Waterborne Throne endured, not as a monument, but as a living bond. Each tide renewed it. Each storm reshaped it. Each creature carried part of its story. The palace of the sea would always change, but the throne would always remain, a symbol of Poseidon's place in the endless deep, a throne that floated, alive, eternal. The sea was not silent under Poseidon's throne. It was alive with countless voices. Each creature carried a song, a rhythm, a story. Poseidon listened, for their voices shaped his realm. The dolphins were the first to greet him. They leapt from the waves with joy and play. Their laughter echoed like bells through the halls. They brought lightness to the heavy weight of rule. Whales followed with their deep and ancient songs. Their voices rumbled like the heart of the ocean. They spoke of journeys across endless waters. They carried memories older than mountains. Poseidon honored their wisdom in silence, for their songs held truths beyond words. Sea turtles swam slowly near the throne. Their movements were calm, steady, eternal. They reminded Poseidon of patience and time, of how the sea outlives gods and mortals alike. Even the smallest fish gathered in swarms. They shimmered like rivers of light in the deep. Though fragile, they shaped the strength of the sea. For the sea is not only vast, but made of many. Every life, no matter how small, held weight. Poseidon saw this and remembered humility. Crabs scuttled across the palace floor. Octopuses curled in shadowed corners, watchful and wise. Jellyfish drifted like lanterns, glowing softly in the dark. Each had a place. Each had a purpose. The sea did not favor only the mighty. It was a kingdom of balance, of many voices. Poseidon ruled, but he ruled by listening. He watched how dolphins cared for their young, how whales guided each other in storms, how schools of fish moved as one body. These were lessons no god on Olympus taught. They were lessons only the sea could show. He learned that power was not only command, it was also care, patience, and harmony. Mortals looked to Poseidon with awe and fear, but creatures of the deep looked with trust. They swam close, unafraid, for they knew his heart. They sensed he was not a stranger among them. He was a part of the sea's great family. At times, he joined their journeys. He rode with dolphins, beside ships at dawn. He listened to whales sing beneath the moon. He let turtles guide him through ancient currents. He wandered where no mortal eyes could see. And always, the creatures welcomed him. The throne was never empty. It was surrounded by life, pulsing and endless. It was not silent stone, but a living chorus. Even storms carried voices through the waves. Seabirds cried above, adding to the song. Together, they wove the music of his kingdom. Poseidon sat upon his throne and closed his eyes. He felt every fin, every shell, every song. The sea was not his to own. It was his to guard, to guide, to cherish. And the creatures reminded him of this truth. They reminded him that a ruler stands not alone, but with those who trust, who follow, who live. Thus, Poseidon's bond with the sea deepened. It was not forged in thunder, but in trust, not in conquest, but in kinship. The creatures of the deep were his companions. They were also his teachers. And through them, the sea spoke its wisdom, a wisdom that flowed forever, like the tide, a wisdom that echoed through the Waterborne Throne. On the edge of the sea, mortals waited. They lived with the tides, yet feared them deeply. Their homes clung to shores where waves could rise. Their lives depended on the sea's uncertain moods. To them, Poseidon was never far away. His throne beneath the waves shaped their every day. Fishermen were the first to call his name. At dawn, they pushed boats into silver waters. They whispered prayers over their nets. They asked for fish to swim near and fill them. They asked for winds to guide them home again. Each word they spoke drifted into the waves. And Poseidon, from his throne, listened quietly. Sailors preparing for long journeys prayed as well. They poured wine into the sea as offering. They set wreaths upon the waves to drift. They begged for safe passage across unseen depths. For they knew the sea could lift or break them, and Poseidon alone held the balance. Sometimes he granted calm skies and gentle waters. Sometimes he tested their resolve with storms. But always, he listened to their trembling voices. Island dwellers built small shrines along the coast. Simple stones, carved shells, bowls of salt. At night, they lit fires to call his gaze. Children listened to waves and said it was him. His presence was in every tide that touched the shore. His throne beneath the sea carried their hope. Mortals never saw it, but they felt its reach. It was as if the throne itself breathed with them. Their offerings were tokens of respect, not fear. For fear alone could not sustain their bond. They knew the sea was life as well as danger. Without its waters, no fish, no travel, no trade. And so their prayers were both gratitude and plea. Poseidon, seated on his shifting throne, understood. He was not only ruler of oceans, he was a bridge between mortal and eternal. Each prayer reminded him of their fragility. Each gift reminded him of their trust. He did not see them as intruders. He saw them as children standing at the shore. Children who looked at the horizon with wonder. Children who listened for his voice in the surf. At times, he sent signs of his presence. A sudden calm after hours of restless waves. A dolphin leaping beside a lonely boat. A fresh spring bubbling near a coastal shrine. To mortals, these were blessings beyond measure. Stories grew with every generation. Sailors spoke of hearing songs beneath the storm. Fishermen swore they saw the glow of his palace. Mothers told children that seashells held his whispers. In every story, the throne beneath the waves appeared. A throne that moved with currents, unseen yet near. a throne that bound their lives to the ocean. Poseidon did not demand great temples of marble. The sea itself was temple enough. Every ripple, every tide was his altar. Every prayer upon the wind reached his throne. And though his power was vast, he remembered balance. For mortals gave him more than offerings. They gave him purpose beyond divine pride. They gave him voices to hear, faces to guard. And so Poseidon's rule was shaped not by might, but by the fragile trust of those on shore. The throne beneath the waves carried their stories. It carried their fears, their gratitude, their faith. And in this bond, sea and shore were one, forever joined by the god who listened, forever bound to Poseidon's waterborne throne. Beneath the restless waves, Poseidon watched the horizon. The throne of coral pulsed with the rhythm of the sea. It shifted with tides, never still, never silent. And on this throne, he pondered the bonds of kinship. For though the sea was his, he was not alone. The Olympians, his brothers and sisters, shaped his fate. Zeus commanded the skies, high and thundering. Hades ruled the underworld, dark and silent. And Poseidon, third brother, carried the sea upon his shoulders. Their bond was strong, but never without shadows. The gods of Olympus often clashed like storms. Each ruled with pride, each demanded reverence. And Poseidon, though mighty, carried his own doubts. He remembered the drawing of lots long ago. The sky to Zeus, the underworld to Hades, the sea to him. Fate had chosen, but choice still lingered. He often asked himself, was it gift or burden? The sea was vast, beautiful, unpredictable. It gave life to mortals and kingdoms, but it could also swallow them without trace. To rule such a realm was both honor and weight. Zeus visited him once upon a lightning storm. The skies cracked open, and thunder met the waves. The brothers stood together, sea and sky colliding. Zeus spoke of order, of keeping balance among mortals. Poseidon listened, but his gaze lingered on the horizon. For his rule was not about order alone. It was about listening, patience, and the deep silence. Hades came too, drifting like shadow through currents. He brought no storm, no thunder, only stillness. They spoke of borders, of the thin lines between realms. Hades respected Poseidon's restless throne, for he knew the sea was as endless as his own domain. In those rare moments, the brothers were united. They shared the quiet truth of eternal guardianship. Each carried a throne unlike any mortal could bear. And though they often stood apart, they were bound. Olympus itself relied on their unseen balance. The gods above feasted and quarreled in brightness. But the three brothers bore the foundation of the world. Poseidon felt it in the pulse of the tides, a constant reminder that thrones are never free. They bind as much as they empower. Among his siblings, Poseidon carried a unique gift. He could bridge the gap between gods and mortals. Mortals looked to him not only in fear, they sought his favor daily with prayers and offerings. Zeus might hurl lightning, Hades might guard shadows. But Poseidon was present in every tide. His throne reached shores where no god set foot. And so, kinship was both comfort and conflict. He admired Zeus, yet envied his freedom of skies. He respected Hades, yet feared the stillness of his realm. He knew their bond was love and rivalry combined, like waves that crash, retreat, and return again. Poseidon often thought of them when storms brewed. The lightning above was his brother's voice. The silence below was his other brother's gaze. And between them flowed his endless throne, a seat alive, burdened, but sacred. Kinship tied them in ways mortals could not see. It was a bond etched deeper than temples or crowns. The brothers carried the world together, unseen, unthanked. and Poseidon accepted his part in that eternal pact. For the sea was his, and he was the sea. The Waterborne Throne rose and fell with kinship, and in that rhythm, the bond endured forever. The sea was not only a throne for Poseidon, it was also a mirror reflecting his own heart. And like the waves, his heart was not always calm. At times, it surged with longing and restless fire. For gods, though eternal, were not untouched by desire. Poseidon sought companionship, as mortals did on shore. He walked among them in forms both hidden and grand. He listened to their songs, their laughter, their fears, and sometimes he found beauty that drew him close. Amphitrite was one such presence, a daughter of the sea. She moved with grace, like a current through deep waters. She was neither loud nor fiery, but steady and strong. Poseidon saw in her the patience of tides. At first, she kept her distance, wary of his gaze. But the sea itself seemed to draw them together. For days and nights, he watched her dance among coral. Her laughter carried like silver bells through the waves. And Poseidon's throne stirred with something new. Not power, not command, but yearning for harmony. When he approached, he did not command her. Instead, he offered the sea itself as promise, not as ruler to subject, but as guardian to partner. He spoke of balance, of life, of shared burdens. Amphitrite listened, and though cautious, she understood. In time, she sat beside him upon the throne. Together they ruled, their presence woven as one. Mortals spoke of Amphitrite's calm hand upon storms, how tempests broke when her voice touched the waves. She became more than consort. She was compass, a guide for Poseidon's restless heart and restless sea. From their union came children, each marked by the ocean. Some fierce as breakers, others gentle as streams. Each carried a fragment of the sea's many moods, and Poseidon loved them as extensions of his own spirit. Yet his heart was vast, like the ocean itself. It reached beyond a single shore or bond. Stories spread of his affections for mortal women, of how he rose from the waves to walk beside them. Some bore him children, heroes with salt in their veins, men who could calm storms or command ships with ease. Mortals whispered of these lineages with pride and awe. For to be touched by Poseidon was to carry the sea. But love for mortals was never simple, for their lives were brief, fragile as foam on waves. Poseidon felt both joy and sorrow in their fleeting years. He gave them gifts, but he could not grant forever. So he returned always to his eternal throne, where Amphitrite waited, steadfast as the tide. Though his heart wandered, she remained his anchor, a reminder that even gods need constancy. Their bond shaped the rhythm of the ocean. His storms were tempered by her calm embrace, his power steadied by her watchful grace. Together, they taught that love was not possession. It was the joining of currents, each flowing true. The throne was stronger for her presence upon it, for it was no longer the seat of one. It was a union, a harmony beneath endless waters. Mortals who prayed felt not only his will, they felt the balance of her gentle hand. And so, in every tide, their love was carried, not perfect, not untroubled, but enduring as the sea. For love, like water, wears away even stone. And Poseidon learned that power meant little without it. His throne was not only waterborne, but heartborne, a seat built as much from love as from waves. And in that love, the sea found its deepest strength. Far above the waves, mortals built kingdoms of stone. Their walls rose high, but their roots reached the sea. For every city near water looked to Poseidon's realm. Trade, travel, food, all depended on his favor. And so the god of the sea shaped mortal destiny. not by decree but by the rhythm of his throne. When Poseidon blessed them, harbors brimmed with ships. Fishermen returned with nets heavy as dreams. Sailors brought spices, gems, and tales from afar. Kings raised temples in gratitude for prosperity. But when the god grew restless, storms swept coasts, ships splintered, crops withered from salted winds. Kingdoms trembled, for they knew the sea's might. Poseidon's throne was not bound to one land. It touched every shore, every isle, every inlet. And mortals felt both awe and fear in equal measure. Some kings courted his favor with offerings of gold. Others carved his likeness upon gates and coins. But Poseidon cared little for riches or stone. What he desired was respect for the balance of the sea. For kingdoms too often sought to master nature. They dredged harbors, cut forests, claimed the shore. Yet the sea could not be mastered, only honored. When mortals forgot, Poseidon reminded them gently. A tide rising higher than walls, a sudden calm broken by endless waves. These were not punishments, but lessons of humility. For the throne was not only power, but teacher. Mortals told stories to explain these shifting moods. They spoke of a god who walked among docks. Disguised as sailor, he listened to their pride. He warned them not to take the sea for granted, and those who listened prospered in their journeys. Those who ignored found their ships lost at horizon. Generations passed, and kingdoms rose and fell. Yet in each, Poseidon's presence left its mark. Cities like Corinth and Athens built shrines on cliffs. Mariners traced his trident on the bows of ships. Mothers taught children to cast shells into waves, not out of fear, but to honor the giver of tides. Even heroes were bound by his influence. Odysseus, Theseus, and countless wanderers of sea. Their tales carried the whisper of Poseidon's hand. For the throne touched both the humble and the mighty. No mortal was beyond the reach of the ocean, and no kingdom could flourish without its blessing. Poseidon knew this, yet he did not gloat. He sat upon his coral throne, listening, weighing. Every harbor song, every crashing tide reached him. He ruled not like a tyrant, but like the sea itself, capable of generosity, yet unyielding in truth. Mortals came to understand this duality. They built cities that flowed with, not against, water. They timed their lives to tides and seasons. In that rhythm, their kingdoms thrived, for the sea gave much when treated with reverence. And Poseidon's throne, ever moving, ever alive, became the silent judge of their destiny. He was not seen on every shore, yet felt. His presence woven in every net, every sail. His throne beneath the waves shaped their histories. A reminder that kingdoms rise, but the sea endures. That walls may crumble, but tides remain eternal. And in the ebb and flow of mortal ambition, Poseidon's hand guided, corrected, and preserved. Not with conquest, but with the ceaseless voice of water. Thus, kingdoms and seas remained forever entwined, bound by the god who ruled with patience and tide. And by the throne that carried both gift and burden, the sea stretched far beyond mortal sight. Yet Poseidon's throne reached into every hidden depth. For not only waves and tides bowed to him, creatures of the deep also knew his reign. Some were gentle, weaving light in the dark. Others vast, ancient, moving mountains with a glance. Each carried the mark of their sovereign god. They were not his servants, but his companions. From dolphins who danced alongside ships at dawn, to whales whose songs echoed through the abyss, to guardians with eyes like lanterns in black waters. All were threads in Poseidon's vast tapestry. Mortals told tales of these sea-born wonders, stories of hippocamps pulling coral chariots, or of naiads rising from foam to sing, of Tritons sounding horns to calm or stir waves, and of Leviathans sleeping beneath continental shelves. Though embellished, such myths held a kernel of truth. For Poseidon did not rule alone. His throne was surrounded by a living court, not bound by stone, but by currents and trust. Each creature played a role in the ocean's harmony. The dolphins were messengers of joy and protection. The whales carried wisdom of unbroken memory. The Tritons balanced command with playful strength. Even the smallest shrimp had purpose in the flow. Poseidon cherished this balance deeply, for the sea was not just power, but family. Every current carried the laughter of his kin. Every reef bloomed with voices ancient and new. Sometimes mortals glimpsed this harmony. A sailor lost at sea saved by dolphins. A ship led safely by the glow of plankton. Or fishermen finding bounty after whispering a prayer. They thought it miracle, but it was connection. The bond between God, sea, and living beings. This bond was what made the throne alive. Not cold like marble, but pulsing with spirit. It was a throne woven from kelp and coral, lit by the dance of phosphorescent creatures, echoing with whale songs like hymns eternal. Poseidon often walked among his kin unseen, resting by reefs, listening to the chatter of fish, joining whales in their mournful, beautiful songs, or watching kelp forests sway like cathedrals of green. These moments were his true joy, not crowns of gold nor temples on land, but the heartbeat of the ocean's endless family. And this family trusted him in return. When storms brewed, they rallied around his will. When calm spread, they carried peace across the seas. Thus his throne was never silent, never empty. It was alive, filled with companions of water. Together they guarded the balance of creation. Together they shaped the destiny of seas and mortals. Mortals who forgot this kinship paid a price, not by wrath, but by absence of harmony. Nets tore, harbors flooded, voyages strayed, because the sea resisted those who disrespected it. Yet those who honored thrived with its blessings. For the throne's strength came from unity, unity of God, sea, and living kin. And in that unity lay the secret of eternity. Poseidon's throne would endure as long as they did, not through domination, but through belonging. A kingdom not of walls, but of water, not of soldiers, but of creatures in harmony. This was the true glory of the Waterborne Throne. It was a throne alive with love, not fear, and its song carried forever across the tides. Legends tell of treasures hidden in the sea's embrace, not jewels alone, but secrets older than mortals. Poseidon, seated upon his throne, guarded these mysteries. They were not locked in chests, but in currents, in caverns of coral, in trenches deeper than night. Each secret was a fragment of creation itself. Some whispered of lost cities swallowed by waves. Atlantis was one such tale, half myth, half memory, said to be a kingdom blessed by the sea, a place of beauty, wisdom, and shimmering towers. But pride turned its people from reverence to arrogance. They sought to command the tides, not live with them. And so, the ocean reclaimed what was always its own, not in rage, but in quiet inevitability. For Poseidon's throne allows no kingdom to rise above nature. Mortals tell this story as warning and wonder. Some believe Atlantis still sings beneath the waves, its halls echoing with songs of choral choirs, its streets lined with shells that glow like stars. But only those chosen by the sea may glimpse it. Poseidon guards these ruins, not to punish, but to preserve a lesson for all who listen, that greatness without humility dissolves like sand. Other secrets dwell in trenches no light reaches. There, Poseidon's throne touches realms unseen. Creatures beyond mortal imagination drift in silence. their forms strange, yet beautiful in their own design. Mortals who have peered too deep speak of wonders. Forests of glass sponges glowing in darkness, rivers of fire running across the ocean floor, gardens of anemones swaying like lanterns in stillness, each a mystery woven into the sea's heart, and each guarded by the patience of the throne. For Poseidon knew mortals were seekers of truth. They longed to uncover, to name, to claim. But some truths were not meant to be possessed. They were meant to be respected, like stars above. The throne of water carried these truths quietly, not flaunting them, but sheltering them in depth. And mortals who ventured with reverence sometimes returned, carrying stories more precious than gold or pearls, songs of whales guiding them through storms, visions of dolphins dancing like heralds of hope. Moments when the sea seemed to breathe with them. These treasures were invisible, yet everlasting. For the sea gave wisdom, not merely wealth. And Poseidon's throne was the keeper of such gifts. It offered no crown, no conquest, no empire. It offered stories, songs, and the rhythm of life. Legends tell of sailors who wept upon their return, not for loss, but for the beauty they carried. They spoke of glimpses of Atlantis' light, of creatures that glowed like constellations beneath waves, of feeling the sea embrace them like kin. These tales spread, carried by word and by wind. And though mortals doubted, some believed with faith. For the sea's treasures are not for all to see. They belong to those who honor its throne. Poseidon watches, not with jealousy, but care, guarding both wonders and lessons in silence. For a treasure revealed too soon may be broken, but one discovered in awe becomes eternal. Thus, the throne bore the weight of mysteries, a guardian of past, present, and untold future, holding stories deeper than stone can ever hold. Legends say even gods listen to its silence, for in that silence lay the truth of creation. And Poseidon, seated with patience infinite, kept them, not for himself, but for the world that would come. The sea's treasures, living or lost, remain timeless. And through them, the throne whispered its eternal song. The throne of water never crumbled, never aged. It was not carved from stone, nor bound by mortar. It was shaped by currents, nourished by tides eternal. Poseidon sat upon it as both ruler and witness. He had seen kingdoms rise like dawn over waves. He had watched them sink, leaving only whispers of song. Through it all, the sea endured, vast and unbroken, and the throne endured with it, pulsing with life. Mortals often asked where true power dwells. Is it in crowns, armies, or walls of marble? But the sea answered in rhythm and silence. True power dwells in balance, patience, and endless flow. Poseidon knew his reign was unlike that of others. He did not conquer, for the sea cannot be owned. He did not chain, for tides are born to move. His throne was not a prison, but a promise that life would always find its rhythm, a promise that even in storms, calm would return. Mortals came to understand this in their own time. They told stories of Poseidon not in fear alone, but in awe, gratitude, and reverence for the ocean's heart. They built temples, yes, but more importantly, traditions. Songs sung before voyages, shells cast into tides. Moments where mortals remembered they belonged to the sea, and not the other way around, as pride may claim. For Poseidon's throne reminded them gently and firmly. The sea was gift, home, and mirror of their souls. As ages turned, new sailors braved unknown waters. They carried with them the echo of ancient myths, even if they did not name the god aloud. They felt him in the sway of their ships, in the sudden calm after tempests had roared, in the cry of gulls guiding them toward shore. In each of these, Poseidon's throne spoke softly, not as command, but as presence woven in nature. For gods do not vanish when temples fall to dust. They live in elements, in forces that shape existence, and Poseidon lived in every tide that touched land. His throne carried the memory of every journey, every prayer whispered on stormy decks at midnight, every tear shed when sailors returned home safely, every lesson learned when arrogance met the waves, all of it gathered in the throne of water. A throne without borders, yet touching every shore, without armies, yet guarding all who sailed with respect, without cruelty, yet reminding mortals of humility. As the world grew, the throne still remained, silent, watching, giving, shaping in infinite rhythm. Mortals may change, kingdoms may fade into memory, but the throne endures, cradled in the heart of seas. And Poseidon, steadfast, remains its eternal keeper. Not out of hunger for dominion, but devotion. Devotion to balance, to life, to endless renewal. That is the true legacy of the Waterborne Throne. Not fear, nor conquest, nor forgotten temples of stone, but the simple, eternal truth carried by the tide, that we are part of the ocean, as it is part of us. And so long as waves rise and fall with the moon, so long as rivers pour their voices into the sea, so long as mortals listen to the whispers of water, the throne will remain alive, unbroken, and eternal. For the throne is not only Poseidon's, it belongs to all who honor the ocean's song. And in every tide that touches the shore, the story of Poseidon and his throne lives on.